This is One on One. We're pleased to welcome Charles Granata, Sinatra Expert, author, producer, and he's the producer on Sirius XM's Nancy Sinatra weekly program, Nancy for Frank, which I listen to every week, and also tied to the Sinatra and American Icon traveling Sinatra exhibit. Yeah, that's right. Every weekend I do it.
That's great. Thanks. That's good to hear.
Oh, I'm not the only one. A lot of people do.
I know. I'm amazed at how many people love our show. It's a great thing.
You know what I'm curious about? I've always thought about this. I was having a conversation with someone the other day. Sinatra was on the background. Happened to be at an event. Sinatra's on the background playing, and I turned to a friend and I said, 50 years from now, you still think they'll be playing Frank Sinatra? He said, of course they'll be playing Sinatra. And Sinatra just had the 100th birthday.
Right.
50 years from now, still playing Frank Sinatra?
Absolutely.
Because
Sinatra bespeaks quality. It's quality songs, it's quality orchestration, it's quality vocalizing. The whole package is there. I mean, these songs that Sinatra recorded in his 60-plus year career are really what the American songbook is all about. And even though other people have come and begun to carry the torch, I mean, it really started with Linda Ronstadt in the early 80s doing these great albums with Nelson Riddle, who was Sinatra's greatest foil in the 50s and 60s as an arranger. But, you know, it continued. I mean, you know, we have Boz Scaggs and Neil Diamond and Barry Manilow and, of course, now entertainers like Michael Bublé and Harry Connick, who have now predicated their whole careers.
Michael Feinstein.
Well, Michael Feinstein's in a different class. I mean, Michael is really, he is the preeminent.
He is, isn't he?
Interpreter, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Michael is a very close friend, but I just adore him as an artist. And not just as an artist, because he's maintained a very unique way and a very unique style in interpreting these songs. But I really love that Michael is into the preservation of the artifacts and of the music that really would have gone away had he not rescued them.
Let's talk about this exhibit. We're going to show some artifacts, if we could. Lauren, if you could, our producer, Lauren's in my ear. As Lauren puts up some of the artifacts from this exhibit, by the way, name the exhibit again?
It's the Frank Sinatra, it's the Grammy Museum Sinatra exhibit, is really what it is.
What are we looking at right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here I can see a great photograph of Frank.
Is that his bow tie?
That's his bow tie. And there's a great story behind these bow ties. So in the 1940s, Frank Sinatra became known as this romantic crooner.
Yeah.
And he had this beautiful crop of hair and these big floppy bow ties. So not only was Frank affecting music in a huge way, he was the first teen idol, starts singing these great romantic ballads and becomes this pop culture sensation, but he affects dress and style. And one of the things that was his signature were these great floppy bow ties, which his wife Nancy Sinatra Sr., actually made for him.
She did.
She did. She made his bow ties in the 40s. And Nancy is 98 years old. She still has the pattern for the original bow ties. And as we could see in the exhibit, the family has generously loaned one of the original Sinatra floppy bow ties to the exhibit so that people could see it.
You talk about fashion. I was telling someone something the other day. We were talking about shoes, and someone said, well, my wife, sorry, my wife, she said, why don't you wear those brown shoes with that blue suit? And I said, what? She goes, no, you've had those cordovan shoes in, my producers are saying, why is Steve talking about this? And you know why I'm talking about it already. And I said, I'm not going to wear those cordovan shoes with the blue suit. And she said, why? I said, because you can only wear black shoes with that suit or any other kind of suit. She said, why? And I know why. Why?
Well, because Sinatra would never wear cordovan shoes or brown shoes with a blue suit.
There it is.
And he was meticulous. So when he made this transition from the bow tie phase to the ultra sophisticated swinging phase in the early 1950s, everything about him changed. It wasn't just that his voice had deepened and that he was singing these great up-tempo songs with Nelson Riddle and Billy May. It was also the style of dress. And he really, I think, affected fashion from the early 50s right through the 60s, which most young people now would call the Mad Men era.
That's right.
But that was the time when Frank started wearing the tie bar underneath his tie, underneath his collar, which was really cool. Or he would loosen his tie and open the top button, and it looked just way cool, right?
Sinatra. It looked good on him.
Well,
not on everybody else.
I think it looks good on a lot of people. And the other thing is he started wearing the snap brim hat. I mean, he started wearing it because he was losing his hair.
Well, the fedora, was that
fedoras, yeah. I mean,
this is in the exhibit.
Yeah.
Talk about the fedora.
It became synonymous with Sinatra and that style. Now, I mean, fedoras had been around for 30 years. But once Frank started to wear his hat tilted, and we started to see pictures of Sinatra in the recording studio and on the film set and out to dinner with his Hollywood pals or with his family, you know, wearing this great snap brim hat, just tilted a little bit. Everybody wanted that look. So, you know, the snap brim hat, you know, the loosened tie, that very carefree, jaunty, sophisticated image matched what he was doing musically and artistically, and it all kind of melded into this pop culture thing.
What cover, sorry for interrupting, Charles, what cover, the cover of the Sinatra, I call it the CD now, has Sinatra, is the Columbia Years, what is the, you know the one I'm talking about, it is...
it's from the Capitol era.
It's from the Capitol, I'm sorry,
Right.
the Capitol era. It's that shot.
It's that shot, right. Well, In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning.
That's it.
It's such a great album. And see, that's the very neat thing, is that Frank not only expressed these feelings of love and
Loss of love,
the jubilation and the joy of being in love and looking for love, and then the sadness and the tragedy of losing your love. But it wasn't just the music and his voice that communicated that. It was the very covers of the album. So in the Wee Small Hours, you know, he's leaning against a lamppost, looking down and forlorn, and he's got the hat is tilted down. On Swing Easy and Songs for Swingin' Lovers, which are these great up-tempo albums, you know, he's looking happy, looking at young lovers, and he's got the hat on. And see, these are just iconic photos of an American treasure, an American classic. I mean, that was the Sinatra that we remember.
You know, my mom was always obsessed with Ava Gardner. She talked about Ava Gardner all the time and the relationship that Frank Sinatra had with Ava Gardner, and the HBO documentary, The Two-Nighter,
Right.
which I know you were sitting there watching as it was happening. With the rest of us
Absolutely.
and millions of others. Did she have his number?
You know, very interesting relationship. Without knowing Ava, you know, ever getting to meet her, I think they were very much alike. Very mercurial personalities and tempers. I think they loved each other, but they couldn't be together because they were so much alike. I think
She made him crazy, though.
she did. She did.
I mean, do crazy things.
Yes. I mean,
Really crazy things.
Well, that's true, and there is a home called Twin Palms in Palm Springs, which is still there, and still has the original bathroom sink where in 1951, Frank cracked a bottle over the sink after a fight with Ava, and the crack in the sink is still there in that bathroom in that house in Palm Springs. It's pretty amazing.
Famous fights.
Yeah, I mean, I think tempestuous would be a great word to describe the Sinatra-Gardner relationship. You know, and I almost wonder if it was at first that he thought maybe she was out of his grasp, and he tried very hard to get her, and once he had her and thought he was losing her, he really wanted to keep her, and it was just elusive to him.
Boy, he gets a lot of heat for leaving his wife at old school Italian culture.
Yes.
That's another story.
Yeah.
You've called Sinatra one of the first multimedia talent.
Yeah. You know, a lot of the fact that Sinatra had this phenomenal success was due to the fact that he came along at the right moment. So he had this phenomenal talent. He had a brilliant voice, which he learned to hone to perfection. And he also arrived at a moment when we had a confluence of radio and records and film and television. And then, as he started to get older, of course, he always did nightclub and stage performances, but, as he became the elder statesman of pop music, we had the concert arena era where people would sell out a Madison Square Garden. And Frank Sinatra succeeded in all of those mediums. And that really, to me, is a big thing.
The other thing about Sinatra, again, for those of us who are Sinatra aficionados, we remember, I wasn't alive at the time, but I remember reading about Sinatra being down for a long time, and a lot of
well, that was right around the Ava Gardner time when he was divorcing Nancy Sr.
So he can't get work.
Can't get work.
So no one wants to be around him.
Right.
And he's begging for the role in what movie?
From Here to Eternity.
And the role is?
Of Maggio, Private Maggio.
So he plays Maggio, and no one thinks he could play Maggio. And what does he do with the Maggio role?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, he said, I was born to play Maggio.
Born to play the role.
This is me.
I am Maggio.
I live this. That's exactly what he said.
I am Maggio.
He said,
Tell
I am
everyone what he
Maggio.
does with it.
Well,
and then when he's walking up the night of the awards, go ahead.
He took the role of Maggio for scale. Okay? This is the guy that was the first pop icon, the first pop idol in history, really. And 10 years later, he's reduced to taking the role in this film that he had to beg for. He had to beg for that role. And he takes the role for Union Scale, which I believe at the time was $8,000. No one really believes in him. They don't think he can do it. Well,
he's done.
They think he's washed up. Not only does he deliver a killer performance, he wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. And at that moment, Sinatra was reborn.
Yeah.
And that was the great thing. He not only was able to reinvent himself in the early 1950s, went on to record all these great albums with Nelson Riddle and Billy May and Gordon Jenkins at Capitol, but then he reinvents himself again in the early 60s and becomes the chairman of the board.
Right, with the Rat Pack, the whole bit.
Yeah, and owns his own record label. Then he goes on to become the elder statesman. I mean, this guy reinvented himself so many times and in so many settings that no one else could even match that.
Yeah, by the way, I'm sorry for being so inside here. Got about 30 seconds left. For people who are not as obsessed and are more normal than I am and want to learn, what are you helping people with? How can they learn?
Well, they can go.
Ultimate.
There are so many great box sets out this year that they can listen to from Capitol Records and Universal Music and
Don't you have the Ultimate Sinatra Guide?
The Ultimate. Oh, I'm working right now. My book, Sessions with Sinatra, is out there. I'm also working on an Ultimate Sinatra Listening Guide, which will come out in 2016.
What is it?
It's called the Ultimate Sinatra Listening Guide, and it is basically going to be the blueprint for everything you need to know about Frank Sinatra, why he's great, and what records you should listen
Charles,
to.
that's why I love my job, is getting to talk to people like you.
Thanks, Steve. Love you, man.
That was great.
It's great.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by PNC Bank, Bloomfield College, United Water, Englewood Hospital and Medical Center, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, Kessler Foundation, and by United Airlines. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.